Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new build on Spell Slam, and today we are jumping right on the bandwagon and we are playing some Hexproof. I think this is the first time that I've ever really played a tier deck on the channel before, which is kind of interesting. Though I have played quite a bit of Hexproof in the past, I've never really played with this version of Hexproof, so I'm really looking forward to trying it out. And the basic concept of Hexproof, or Bogles as it's sometimes called, is that you have all these creatures that have the keyword ability Hexproof, like this Gladecover Scout, which is a 1/1 for 1 that has this creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. And essentially all of these creatures are kind of interchangeable. They all basically do the same thing. Slippery Bogle, same deal, 1 mana 1/1 with Hexproof. Can be a little bit worse if you're playing against Pyroblast, I guess. It can also be a little bit better if you're playing against Guardian of the Guildpact. And then we also got Silhana Ledgewalker here, which is a 2 mana 1/1 with Hexproof, but it can only be blocked by creatures with flying and not reach, which is kind of cool as well. But it's seeing a little bit less play in the deck lately because, well, I'm assuming it's because there are a little bit more flyers in the format than there used to be, like Glinthawk and Core Skyfisher now being really, really popular creatures. So this thing gets blocked a little bit more easily, but it's still an excellent creature. The only other creature that doesn't have Hexproof in our deck that we have is Core Skyfisher, which is a 2 mana 2/3 with flying. When it comes into play, you get to return a permanent you control to its owner's hand. So we'll talk about the intricate things that happen with that ability, but essentially it's a very, very cheap creature that, against decks that don't have very much removal, you can easily just put all your auras on this card and just go to town. So speaking of auras, we've got 4 copies of Rancor. 1 mana gives the creature +2/+0 and trample, and it also comes back to your hand, which kind of mitigates the effects of removal on your creatures if ever they were to be killed in combat or with edict effects. We've also got 4 copies of Ethereal Armor, which gives the creature +1/+1 for each enchantment you control, and First Strike, which is pretty relevant. We've got Ancestral Mask, which gives the creature +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield. So it doesn't count itself, but it does count any enchantments that your opponents might have. A really good way to close out the game. And we've also got 4 copies of Armadillo Cloak, which gives the creature +2/+2 and trample, and something that resembles lifelink. So before lifelink was a keyword, they had this. So whenever a creature deals damage, you gain that much life. So this is a trigger that goes on the stack. So for example, if you're looking to survive an attack and you're blocking with this, and your life were to go below 0, well, the trigger would go on the stack, but you would still lose the game on the spot, whereas lifelink, all the damage would happen at the same time, and the lifelink wouldn't go on the stack and you would survive. But on the other hand, if you play Armadillo Cloak, multiple Armadillo Cloaks on the same creature, those triggers actually stack and you gain double the amount of life. So for example, if I have Gladecover Scout, which is a 1/1, and I put 2 Armadillo Cloaks on it, I'm going to gain 10 life instead of 5 because I get 2 of those triggers, which is really, really sweet. Otherwise, we've got 12 kind of mana fixers or ramp spells, 4 copies of Utopia Sprawl, which is kind of our only ramp spell, but it also fixes us. Keep in mind it can only be played on a forest, which can sometimes come up. We've got 4 copies of Abundant Growth, and when it comes to play, you draw a card, and you can also tap it to add 1 mana of any color. And then we've also got the brand new edition of Arkham's Astrolabe, which basically does the same thing as Abundant Growth, but essentially we play it as just an additional way to have a more consistent mana base and more filtering through our deck, which is super useful, and especially with Core Skyfisher, because you can play a turn 1 Astrolabe and then a turn 2 Core Skyfisher, picking it up, and then replay it on the following turn, and just get a lot of advantage that way. So it really helps us in a lot of ways that made the deck a lot better, a lot more consistent. In terms of the mana base, we've got 2 copies of Ash Barrens here, which you can play for sure just as it is, as an untapped colorless source that you can filter with Arkham's Astrolabe or Abundant Growth, or you can basic land cycle it, usually getting our lonely snow-covered plains down here. Otherwise, we've got Crumbling Vestige, which comes into play tapped, but it also adds a mana of any color when it comes to play. So usually this deck doesn't need more than just a few colored mana to really get the deck to work aside from the green mana, so it'll often add the white mana that you need on that one turn to play the Armadillo Cloak to win. So other than that, you can also filter the colorless mana with Arkham's Astrolabe or Abundant Growth, or you can also pick it up with Core Skyfisher to reuse it later. I don't know, it's pretty good in this deck. We've also got 2 copies of Colony Garden, which comes with a tapped, but it does give you a 0/1 plant token, which helps you fight edict effects, or sometimes, occasionally, you can also just put all your auras on this thing and go to town, which I've definitely done before, and it's really, really funny. In terms of the sideboard, we've got one copy of Crimson Acolyte, which has protection from red, and you can also give your creatures protection from red. It helps you fight electricity mostly, but any red stuff that you might be having trouble with. It can also be used as a creature to put all of your auras on against mono red decks. We've got a copy of Ray of Revelation, which is a great way to destroy enchantments because of the flashback. We've got 2 copies of Standard Bearer, which is a great way to protect your creatures. It also absorbs your opponent's pump spells, and it also there are auras as well. We've got 2 copies of Dispel, which we can easily cast off of Abundant Growth and Arkham's Astrolabe. Occasionally we'll also use Utopia Sprawl, I guess, but it's a pretty consistent way to get these to get the blue mana. We've also got 1 Cartouche of Ambition, our only black card in the deck. And I've seen a few people playing this card. I'm not too sure about it, but I decided to try it out and see what happens. It lets you maim or kill a smaller creature, and it also gives your creature +1/+1 and lifelink, which is really, really good, but I'm not quite sure if it's better than the original lifelink, which is pretty self-explanatory, but it's only 1 white mana to give the creature lifelink, which is really, really good, really powerful effect, even if it doesn't pump. We've got a really big red splash here, which is pretty typical today with all the mana fixing that we have. So we've got 2 copies of Electrickery to deal with lots of little threats. We've got 2 copies of Gorilla Shaman for affinity, which we can struggle a little bit against if we don't find our lifelink, and they can, gang block our big creatures and make combat really difficult for us, and Artifact Hate really helps with that. Ancient Grudge is kind of the Artifact Hate version of Ray of Revelation, again with the efficient 2-for-1 of the flashback, makes it really, really powerful. We've got 1 copy of Flaring Pain, another little flashback card, just helps us fight fog and Circle of Protection effects. And we've also got 1 single copy of Fling, which just lets us kind of end the game a lot faster by just killing our opponent outright, which has been kind of a popular strategy that I'm looking forward to trying out occasionally. So that is Hexproof, guys. I am really looking forward to just playing some little creatures, making them huge, and then swinging and killing the opponents super quickly. And I hope you guys enjoy the games. We'll see you soon.